Hey, how you doing? Look, this is going to be a great chat today. A lot of people that know me know that IMF and I have had a very good relationship. Love's probably a strong word, but you know what? When you see something that's really cool and it's going to make the industry a lot better and it's actually worthwhile looking at, then I'm all for that. I think it's fantastic. So IMF, if you don't know, is an operable master format, and I'm looking from an advertising perspective today. So IMF's been used for a while now, particularly by a company called Netflix. Might have heard of them. They have a lot of issues of receiving lots of files and lots of data and all that sort of stuff. But what I want to look at is how, from an advertising perspective, you could utilize this format. And the key retrospectives you want to look at is, we're doing lots and lots more programmatic and addressable. It's horrible words, but they're the kind of advertisements that are really targeting our audiences. And to be able to do that and to do it en masse, you kind of need a tool set that will allow you to do that. Not only technically, but kind of moving into the right direction of data, control, and security. And that's a real key point here. So if you haven't heard of this or whatever, there's a lot of resource, which I'll put into the links, but it has a couple of formats. Well, it's not formats, that's a stupid word. It's not formats. It's kind of a mixture of ingredients to kind of put together. And they're all XML driven, and it's a completely UI'd, which is unique IDs. It's not human readable in any way, shape, or form, and it's kind of built for the computers, which is quite cool. So the CPL is a composition playlist, and that basically puts everything together and kind of the glue of putting it in place. You've got the OPL, which is the delivery instructions. Now, let's be very clear. As of September 2019, the OPL is in very, very early stages. And what it will be doing is that the OPL will be the instructions to the transcoders on what to do to the assets. Now, that's a big statement, and it's a lot of work to do. So if you've got Vantage per se, you'd shoot off a CPL today, and the CPL would concatenate the assets together and create a flattened file. So with the OPL, it'll be into a more detailed structure of what needs to be done with those assets. The KPL is a packing list, and this is basically the overview. Is everything where it is? Is the naming where it is? Is it in the right place? Now, IMFs don't work on a kind of a link structure, so you won't be having / my documents / this where it is. It needs to be in the one folder. The one folder is the root. The root is where all the assets live. Now, another thing is an IMP. So you kind of go, okay, is that another format altogether? No. IMF is a format. IMP is the package. So when you've got one file, you've got 1,000 files, you're delivering an IMF package or an IMP, okay? And in Flame, it's called an IMP folder when it exports out. So there's a tiny bit of glossary and why it's really bizarre, but IMP and IMF is it, kind of like Sony is IMF, and Sony Walkman is IMP, so it's kind of under that branch. So why even talk about this? My life's easy. I don't need to worry about any of this. Well, it's great to have a talking piece on this. And IMF for advertising and kind of any of that large-scale processing is really required when you're going to do not only hundreds, but thousands, if not tens of thousands, targeted commercials. So the reason we're talking about it now is that IMF.IC is the smartest way and the most controlled way to produce this product. And that's why I got it very close to my heart. So let's dive into it. So if you're sitting in your edit suite and you've knocked out the most amazing commercial in the entire world and it's just one spot, and for argument's sake, using ProRes, you could go XDCAM, you could go anything else, but I'm just focusing on ProRes. Now, interestingly, with IMF, currently it's a J2K codec, but they are looking at using ProRes as the codec of choice, and that's in the ST2121, and this is where the SMPTE guys are all kind of bounding together to make this in. But today, it's J2Ks. I'm focusing on ProRes, so you get an idea. So an average size of a 30-second spot is a gig, right? Client goes, right, I need you to go and make me 1,000 of these files. So, crap. You can see that this starts adding up. So you're having to spit out a gigafile, and off you go, and off you go. So you need to upload a terabyte of files now. So you kind of go, oh, I'll use MP4, that's great. Well, if you're doing broadcast and you're doing addressable broadcast, MP4 won't bite it, okay? So you need to be an XD camera. So for argument's sake, I slashed it in half, and you've got now 500 gig of files you need to upload now because the client wants to do a brand new thing because the Olympics are on, their favorite athlete has just won a medal, and you need to do this now. Can you see what the problem is? So the speed of getting up is a real big pickle. You don't know what you're making, so okay, let's fire up a workspace in AWS and let's do it on the cloud, and the cloud's great. You're still moving 500 gig around or a terabyte around. Bit of egress, bit of storage, it all adds up. And the current way of doing what we call flattened files isn't built for purpose for the future. So these punks came around and went, right, our problem is that we do movies. That's not a problem, it's a great problem. But what we do is we go global. We're not a Sky or not a Channel 7 or not a CTV. We do global scale of programs programs and films. The problem is that we want to play a film in Spain. We want to play a film in France, play them in Uruguay, Australia, everywhere. So we do not want to get 25, 30, 40 different variants of a terabyte or 2 terabytes of finished masters. We want to be able to have a finished master. And if you're going to replace the captioning, or you're going to replace the voiceover, or you're going to replace the top and the tail, or just a little section in the middle, then we want the availability of having a finished file, which is great. We're happy with that. But that finished file will then be the kind of the lighthouse to all the other assets. So if you're going to deliver 2 commercials in this stage to Netflix, you would have a finished 30-second file of a gig, but then you might just have an end tag that's only 30 meg. So that's pretty cool, yeah? So, and then what the CPL will do, the CPL will grab this crazy GUI up the top, which is the reference to the video file, crazy GUI to the bottom, which is the reference of an audio file in this case, and then it will staple the two together or concatenate it, and you'll make your new file, which will go to the transcoders to be transcoded into the CDNs and a load of variable assets. So how does this make life easier? We now have a very, 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 very low file size, which is all in one place, which can be uploaded immediately, swapped out when you want, and plus this is 30 meg for a ProRes. You could then bring this down to an XD-CAM, which might even be 10 meg. So I would prefer to be somewhere where I'm uploading 10 gig to a terabyte in speed, okay? So this is where it all comes down to, is speed. So what can you change and what can be moved out? Well, the video, what you do, you need that final video first. That final video is a lighthouse. Then you can swap out segments of video. You can swap out segments of all of the audio. You can put in captions as a whole. Now, putting sections of captions, isn't really the way to go. So you would actually have, because they're very lightweight. I mean, worst case scenario, it's a meg or two for a whole movie. So for the caption file, you just swap out your Spanish, your French, your Italian, German, world's your oyster. So what's it look like? Well, it's a folder, and within a folder is a load of XMLs and physical media. So you will see the audio underscore and the video underscore. That is your finished media with a GUI number stapled in there. Your OPL, which we managed before, your PKL and your CPL, your volume index and your asset map. So all of these work seamlessly together. So with the CPL will grow if you're adding assets to that. I completely tell a porky pie. That will happen. What will happen when you're doing multiple assets is that there'll be multiple CPLs associating to those audio and video assets. So the folder itself will grow in size. There'll be multiples of CPLs, multiples of OPLs. OPL will grow as a kind of a product. Doing air quotes here, people. Sorry. And what will do will allow more seamless grabbing of the files, manipulating the files into final file formats. And then more importantly, if you can do this on the fly, as in like a broadcaster, which is a long way away, then you could actually concatenate finishing titles. So you could have a show with 20, 30, 40, 100, 50,000 end titles or end ideas or even end sections that would finish off a product. So this is where it gets to. It becomes that non-linear in a linear environment where, it went from videotape to Avids and then Final Cuts, and I don't want to start that debate, but you get my idea. So how's it all working? What's going on? Well, in the advertising world in the UK, there's a fantastic company called the Digital Production Partnership. Now, these guys are fantastic. They're grabbing all the data together, including Bruce Devlin, Mr. MXF, and spearheading this idea of how do we make this into a viable product that is kind of controlled, has a lot of structure behind it, and what is the problem we're trying to solve. So they're having meetings all the time. I'm privy to have those meetings as well. I'm not going to say it on here because it's with my other company that I'm working with. But these guys are fantastic. If you want to find out stuff about it, at IBC 2019, we're going to launch a whole new idea of IMF for advertising. I'll throw a link in where I was chatting for the DPP at IBC 2018. Or was it 2019? I think it might have been 2019. And then we can actually start getting all this data together. So today, 1st of September 2019, where are we at and how do we create it? Now, I'm going to focus on the non-linear side of it. So we're making commercials, we're doing non-linear. There are major companies out there that do a suite of this. And there's Dalit, there's Marquise, there's a lot of other ones that are out there doing all this. But what I'm focusing on is kind of the plugin or the last bit or where it's doing on finishing a commercial. The current players in the field right now is Autodesk the other day, Flame, my baby, and also DaVinci Resolve Studio. So for $299 or 299 quid or 209 whatever it is, you can actually throw a file in and spit out an IMF from these packages. Now, the key differences between these two packages is that Flame will only do a single file as an IMF, but they classify that as an IMP. Resolve can make an IMF, and then you can bring it back in and make the supplemental packages, i.e. just adding the audio, adding the video. So you can make these massive containers in Resolve Studio, and it has presets for the 21st century and also for Netflix. So you can start today making these up. And I'm going to do a series of videos on how this all works. But it's an exciting way of going. I'll be interested to see where Adobe's going. I know Telestream can make it very easily in Vantage. So I haven't put those enterprise ones onto here. I'm focusing on the non-linears and how it works. So, thank goodness you survived this. It was death by PowerPoint. I'm so sorry. So what's next? Well, look. It's a very exciting time to start investigating this. And if I was owned a post-production company or I was looking at a media agency or any of that way, I'll be looking at ways I can create content in mass and then have it in a place that people can come and aggregate and utilize that application. So I can see a lot of microservices going on this where people would be storing their IMPs in the clouds. There'd be an ordering going on. They'd be aggregating that system. They'll be building more on these IMPs. And there'd be a whole network of people going on. Netflix are the trailblazers here. The broadcasters will get onto it. But the broadcasters, I suspect, won't want to receive IMF in to do the heavy lifting. I could be completely wrong. And it could be completely off the mark there. But talking to the ones in the UK, they just want a flat file now. They want a file with a clock number that's going to play out. And there's a couple of, issues to go over there because in the UK, we have a clearance company called Clearcast who are fantastic and industry standard, if not the only one here. But what they do is that they put through Harding's tests and PSE, so for the photosensitive epilepsy. And another key thing is when we start stapling different things together, we need to put that through and kind of QC. And is the R128 going to be right? And there's all these kind of fun problems that need to be fixed. But it is very early doors, if not day 2 of IMF. But this video is to kind of put it out there, show you guys that, it's there. You should investigate. And listen, well done. I hope you're having a lovely day. And thanks for watching.